You know. Well, we were talking about the also too. We were talking about in far as companionship. So I wanted to touch on the Cassie thing a little bit, and talk about it a little bit. So
Okay.
obviously the video of seeing Puff, or Diddy beating her, obviously wasn't the first time. They had a very um, abusive relationship, to say the least, right? So I really looked at it and I said, you know what? And I'm not blaming her. I always say to myself, if you're a woman and you enter a relationship with someone who has a lot of resources, you always got to ask yourself, you know, are you going to be treated? Are you being treated correctly? And do you have a relationship that has some respect in it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think you really got to ask yourself. And I'm not saying that it's her fault. I'm just saying that a lot of times in a relationship where one person wields a lot of power, you got to, as a woman, you got to really say, okay, does this guy really care about me? And we're not even talking about being faithful to you. The guy may not even be faithful to you.
Yeah.
But is the guy treating you with some level of respect
Respect.
and care? Because if it's a situation where the person is wielding a lot of power, that's where the respect go out the window. And the stuff that he was accused of doing, um, it's not particularly a surprise. I've been hearing some weird stuff about him for a long time, but I just say to myself that, damn, somebody like her, maybe she could have just been with a different person. What was it about him that
I
she
think she
wanted to be
was
with?
with someone. She was with a rapper, wasn't she?
I think she was with Brian Leslie, the producer,
Oh, the
initially.
producer.
But I'm
Yes,
just I'm
that's what
I'm
it
just
was.
saying when you enter into a relationship with
Someone
someone
of
like
that much
of
power.
that stature,
Yeah, of that stature.
there's a lot of benefits when you enter into a relationship with someone with a lot of stature, um, but there's cons to that, and I think as a woman you have to look at that stuff before you enter those type of relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with that. But at the same time, um, people who, I mean, I've never been on the receiving end of this, so I can't even relate. But from what I understand, some people who have had been abused sometime in their lives,
Hmm.
they tend to find themselves in abusive relationships.
Right.
So I would think that for me, the judgment, I would love to know like how she felt just initially with the first
The
incident.
first
You know
incident,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, was she, did she, it's hard to explain. It's like, it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not normal
Yeah.
how you're being treated in this relationship. So, I don't know. Maybe there is some level of abuse in her past. You never know the reason why people tolerate what they tolerate.
Yeah.
You
No,
never
I
know
mean
the
you're
reason
right.
why. I
You're right.
mean,
You're
it's
absolutely
it's
right.
so hard to determine why she tolerated what she tolerated for so long. And
Well, the
she's not the first. She
well the stuff that just stuff we saw on the video. The stuff on the video is like small compared to all the stuff that he was accused of. Because he was accused of like having her have sex with
I know.
male prostitutes and all kind of craziness. And
Yeah.
you know, all I'm saying is that
I mean, abuse, it wasn't just like physical. I'm sure there was a lot of mental abuse.
of
I'm sure
course,
there
of
was like,
course,
more
of
than that.
course.
So who knows what he has, the words
Well,
that he
the
used.
the thing is that
I'm sure the words probably made such a big impression on her that I don't know if she necessarily had a choice. You know what I mean? Like, I
well,
mean, now that she's older now and she knows, she knows better. And so she was like, yeah, I was completely wronged and I'm going to get some, he needs to be held accountable.
well, yeah. I mean, I
And
think
maybe
that
that,
again, it goes back to what you said.
real quick, and I think that kind of growth maybe comes over time.
Yeah, it does go. I agree. It does go. It does come over time. But I also think that I think that women who they entertain it's very important to identify who you're going to entertain,
Yeah.
who you're going to give your time to. I think that, you know, Kevin Samuels once said, like, people hate him, but he once said, women provide access to sex, men provide access to relationships. And I think that women
Wait, say
also.
that again.
He said that women provide access to sex,
Okay.
and men provide access to relationships.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they decide whether they want to actually be in a relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
But I agree to a certain extent, but I also feel like you have to, as a woman, you got to make sure you look at what you're going to entertain. Because if you're not going to entertain a man, ain't no sex or relationship going to happen if you're not going to give that man any rhythm.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times women overlook certain things, if especially if there's resources involved, and the amount of craziness you going through is not your fault, but you also have to look at it and say, you know what would you tell an 18-year-old Cassie?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what would I, like, we have a daughter. Like, what I'm telling, I want to make sure that my daughter's not like just careening into relationships. You got to
Yeah.
really say to yourself, okay, you gonna get with him. What are you expecting in the relationship?
Yes.
If you're 18 and you're getting with a 37-year-old puff daddy, what is it that you're expecting in the relationship?
Well, men like him pry on women of that age because their minds aren't developed,
Sure.
completely
I get
developed.
you.
They can be easily molded.
I
And
get
I
it.
think, I mean, you can be easily taken advantage of at that age. And that's
But why?
for him or for her.
Why is it that it's easy to prey on a woman in general?
Well, in general, well, I think at least at the age of 18, they don't have that. I don't know if it's the prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobe that isn't completely developed for executive functioning and for making rational decisions.
That's fine. I get that. But again, I get that.
And
That's
then there's
true.
sometimes
But
trauma. I mean, it's
yeah,
all of that.
but at the same time, what happens is that there's a level of, I'm going to enter into this arena of a certain situation if there's resources there. So if someone is broke, you're not necessarily going to be like, oh, here's this 37-year-old guy who doesn't have much. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in a relationship with him. Maybe you would. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but what I'm
Well, he
saying,
was schmoozing her.
well, I mean,
If
it's,
you're broke, you're not schmoozing
but
anybody.
she's right.
I mean,
right. You're right.
Yeah, so
I agree.
she was an artist. So she of course wants to be known as I mean, she was a beautiful singer. She wants to
Again, but that's where I get
most
at.
artists just want to be like at
Yeah,
the
but
top, you know? So you're
well,
going to associate and surround yourself with top level people. Now, why the relationship? I
but
think
she didn't make music a lot after being with him. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. You're absolutely right. My thing is that what you entertain, of course she's immature. I get it. But what you entertain when you are trying to be with somebody who has a lot of money and power, 9 times out of 10 is not going to be good.
yeah.
9 times out of 10, you don't typically end up as the wife. You don't typically end up being treated well.
And maybe that's what she will tell her 18-year-old self.
Yeah, but the issue is that we tell women that, you're just being manipulated and you can't make any decisions.
Of course you can.
And
You
you
absolutely
have to
can.
be able to be. You have to tell young women, like,
Yeah.
listen, there's a trade-off you're
Yes.
making. Don't pretend like. My issue is, don't pretend like you don't know the trade-off. You
Yes.
are gonna trade off when you. I'm not saying that someone who's rich and powerful can't love you and be with you.
Yeah.
But they would show you that the same way any other man would.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what the young girls today need to know. For
Yeah.
sure. 110%.
But there's a lot of young
But-
women that absolutely consciously make those choices. If you want to be around guys that have I'll keep it real. If you want to be around guys that have a lot of resources and you're young, if you're not ready to look at them the same way you look at another guy with the same expectations, if you're trying to be someone's wife or woman, if you are, then you got to keep it real with yourself. If you're not trying to and you just like, you want to be the girlfriend or you want to be in the mix, cool. But 9 times out of 10, that situation is going to come with you not being treated that well.
I
You know what I
agree.
mean?
I agree. Yep. You ain't gonna get no
No, you're not gonna.
back and forth with me because I'm 100% on that.
That situation was more extreme because she entered into an arena where I'm not saying the abuse and all that craziness is justified,
Yeah,
but
absolutely not.
you entering into an arena where you're not necessarily gonna be treated well.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it really worth it? Even though you're being around, you know what I mean? So
At the end of the day, every day you have to make a choice. Every day you're making a choice to be with somebody
yeah,
or to not be with somebody.
yes, you know.
Every day is a choice.
See, I don't think men, we don't typically have the same choice to make. Men in their prime, quote unquote, do not have a choice to make because you typically are not going to leverage your good looks for unless you unless you find some sugar mama who's like, yes, you're so handsome, I want to treat you to the world. But typically that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? That one's gone, but it's all good.
Oh, it's
Um,
gone.
that one's
I think
good.
it's still recording. But
No, it stopped. But
anyway.
but they're not going to do that. But women have a choice. Women definitely have a choice at a certain age, you know, or at many ages. Am I going to leverage my great looks? And the person is going to be like, cool, you could come and be part of my life, you know.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that I feel bad for her situation because people didn't believe her initially until that tape came out. But um, I believed it when I heard about the lawsuit. But I just feel like at some point, the choices of what you are entertaining as a woman could have been totally different.
Yeah.
You have the bread now. She got the lawsuit money. But I don't know what the hell she went through and how long that's going to stain her spirit.
Yeah.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, yes.
I'd rather, you know, to me, I'm like, you could just make your music, you know, even if you're only a millionaire or 100,000aire, and just have you a regular life with all that crazy trauma,
Yeah.
you know. So it's all a trade off. So
You know, yeah. I mean, it's a hell of a trade off and it's a hell of a trauma to go through to grow from.
crazy, crazy.
But she's going to grow from it. And I certainly hope to hear some music or something from her. It doesn't.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
That would be interesting. I would love to see what that produces. You know?
That would be interesting if she made some music. She hasn't made any music in a long time, but that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
You know, but
That would be interesting to see.